He's gone. He couldn't go all the way.
But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
We talking about practice.
You play to win the game.
Playoffs?
It's like taking poison, like rat poison.
It's Division I football. It's the Big 12. It ain't intramurals.
So we always usually just started off with a quick little kind of short version bio of your life and what you've kind of done coming up to this point.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me on. This is a lot of
You're
fun.
welcome.
I've got 2 little boys right now, and I think this is. I told your dad first time we spoke. I think this is super creative and different format for a show. So thank you for having me on. Yeah, so I'm Taylor McHargue. I'm from Austin, Texas. I went to Vista Ridge High School up in Cedar Park, and I played quarterback at Rice from 2009 through 2013. I got very fortunate. I got to be a 4-year starter there. Was hurt some of my freshman year, but by and large was the starter for 4 years. And we had a good run when I was there. Played in some bowl games. We won Conference USA in 2013, which was the first outright conference championship they'd had since 1957, which was really special to be a part of. And then I have been in broadcasting since 2018. Was with ESPN for a couple of years, and then have primarily been with CBS Sports since 2023. And I am an analyst on their college football team. So I call a lot of Mountain West and some of what will now be the Pac-12. With ESPN, I've done Big 12, SEC, ACC. And then some of my favorites lately have been these kind of midweek games. If you've seen Tuesday and Wednesday nights, sometimes you'll see college football on now. I'll do some of those with CBS as well. So, live here in Austin. Like I said, married with a couple little boys and have another one on the way. And but love college football and still very much my passion.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to kick it off with our first question. You won the starting job as a redshirt freshman, the first freshman to start at Rice since 2000. What was it like walking into the huddle for the first time as a young guy calling the shots?
Yeah, it was. So we had a quarterback competition going, and there were 2 other guys that were older than me. One had transferred in from Alabama, and one had transferred in from Miami. And so I had just come. I'd redshirted at Rice, and these guys they had stronger arms than I did. They had bigger pedigree than I did. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get the nod, if I was going to be the guy that, won out the job. And we played our first game that year was against the University of Texas. And it was in NRG Stadium. Back then it was Reliant. And it was 2010. So this is the year after they lost the national championship when Colt McCoy got hurt. But they brought back almost everybody on that defense. And so this is Monday night of game week. They sit us down and say, Taylor, you're the guy. You're going to start on Saturday against Texas. And to be completely honest, I didn't think that they were going to do that. I knew I was going to play, but I thought they were going to start the guy that had started most of the season the year before. I just thought it'd be easier for our head coach to go with somebody that had some experience and then work me in when he wanted to. And so I was extremely nervous. I mean, I was 19 years old and I knew the names of every single person. Again, I'm from Austin, and Texas had just been in the national championship. So I knew the name of every guy on their defense, and not just because I'd watched their film 15 times, but I was a fan of some of these guys when I was in high school. And I will never forget walking, in the tunnel at NRG, and we get down to the front of the tunnel and they're doing the Texas fight, and it's a sellout, and they're doing Texas fight. They've got the big Longhorn flags right in front of us. And I mean, I was sick to my stomach. I was so nervous. But we go out the first drive of the game. We drive down the field, kick a field goal, get points early, and settled in. And I played okay for my first game. But yeah, for first game, I was about as nervous. I don't think I've ever been that nervous in my life since then.
Did you guys win or lose?
We lost. It was closer than I think Texas fans would have liked, especially in the second half. But we did end up losing.
What was it? Did you find out then, or later, some years down the road? What was it that instilled the confidence in your coach, or gave him the confidence to choose you as the starter based on the fact that previous starter was there, guys with stronger arms?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I was recruited as a dual threat quarterback. I was a 4.5 40. I was a pretty good athlete, and our offensive line was pretty much the whole time I was there, except for senior year. Really, we had some pieces ebbing and flowing, and every now and then we'd have either an injury or a young guy, and protection wasn't always, especially against a team like Texas, where we were going to be able to protect for 3.5, 4 seconds. And so being able to make plays off script and run the football, I think was a big reason why I got to play early. And a lot of our success as an offense in my career came from running the football. We were the best rushing offense in Conference USA the year that we won Conference USA. And so I think a big part of it early was, if things broke down, I could make stuff happen off script. I think that was probably the number one reason, honestly, especially against Texas.
Yeah. And definitely you're like, unless you're like a team with really like a bunch of like a really, really solid offensive and defensive, like, to me, even though, in my opinion, they feel like the most unnoticed position,
For sure.
I think they're probably the most important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a line, if one of those, if somebody's injured, hurt, gone,
100%.
The
somewhere like
skill players can't display their skill if they don't have the big boys up front.
That's exactly right. No, Dylan, I think you're spot on. And I think University of Texas last year with Arch Manning is a great example of offensive line was not great for them a year ago. And I think a lot of blame got put on Arch Manning that maybe wasn't completely fair. And I think quarterback is still, I think it's the most important position in sports, because if you don't have a good quarterback, you've got no shot, especially in the NFL. But right behind that, you better have a really good offensive line to have any success. So Dylan, I completely agree with you.
Exactly. Because again, the offensive line's a starting building block, because if the offensive line doesn't do a good job, the Q doesn't throw the ball. And if the Q doesn't throw the ball, the skill players don't get the ball.
That's right.
Yeah, you've got it down.
So, yeah, definitely having a good offensive line is definitely a vital piece of any football team.
For sure.
So, moving on to our next question. Who's the best teammate you've ever played with, and why?
Best teammate. Man, I had a few. I'll give you two. I'll give you one that was the best teammate because he was the best player I played with, and then another one that was the best teammate because everybody just loved him. The first would be Vance McDonald. He was a second-round pick. He was my tight end, and you talk about ultimate security blanket. That was a tight end that he was in this modern era of college football. He would have transferred out. He was too good to really play with us, but this was pre-transfer portal, and so he was with us all 4 years. And he was the best. He was when he was healthy, I could throw it to him in basically any situation, any coverage, and he would make a play. We also had another guy, Luke Wilson, two tight ends that played in the NFL for a long time that were on the same team with us. The guy that I would say was our best teammate was a guy named Michael Kutzler, who was a walk-on linebacker that ended up becoming a scholarship player and a team captain. And he's now a surgeon and became a doctor, and just the ultimate teammate. Like, we would, bend over backwards for anybody, made everybody feel important and loved on the team. And, still to this day, I would say is a guy that everybody really thinks highly of and has a ton of respect for.
Yeah. And again, even if you're not like a professional football player, like in this world, it is really important to be a leader and a good helper and mainly a good teammate because everybody needs somebody around you supporting you, helping you, being friendly to you.
Yeah, Dylan, I'd be curious. I mean, on your teams, what do you like out of a teammate on teams that you play on?
I don't really have any expectations. Like I don't we're all 9, 8-year-old. I don't have massive expectations.
You just want everybody to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if somebody was nice to me or I have teammates who do that, but I don't it's not something that okay, he didn't do that. I don't it's not an expectation.
Yeah.
Right.
If I get it, it's greatly appreciated, but not an expectation.
I think your expectation, because you're competitive,
is just for myself to be good.
Well, for everybody to give effort, I think is your expectation, regardless of talent, because there's various development in terms of physical, gifts, but you just want everybody to try hard and to care.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I think that as long as you play sports, you will feel the same way. And effort, you can't coach effort.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's your number one is effort.
That's awesome.
Probably.
Yeah.
So a quarterback might be the most pressure-packed position in all of sports. What did playing QB teach you about leadership that you still use today?
Yeah, I think the piece, and you could say this probably about football in general, but definitely playing quarterback, you don't have to be everybody's best friend, but you better have a good relationship with most everybody on the team. And I think learning how to, when I was really young, I did not do a great job of how I communicated with my teammates and how do I, some guys you can really get on and kind of jump their tail if they screw something up versus other guys, you need to love on them a little bit and be more kind of a positive cheerleader type. And the different style in communication, that doesn't go away. Now I have, I'm in a normal job now and I'm not playing football, but how I communicate with people that I work with is not the same with every person. And I think we talked about being a good teammate, and also getting comfortable as a quarterback with my head coach, David Bailiff, used to say, you're going to get too much credit when it goes well, and you're going to get too much blame when it goes poorly. And being comfortable with that, because there's also situations now in my regular life that the same thing happens. Sometimes you get blamed, and especially if you're in a leadership position like a quarterback, things go poorly, and it's very easy to point the finger at the QB. But when things are going well and you win the game, even if you didn't necessarily play that well, you still get a lot of credit. And I think learning how to balance all of that, I was very lucky that I got to play all 4 years, because by the end, I'd gotten a lot better and matured, at least a little bit into how to communicate differently with different teammates and try to keep a good relationship with those guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you started, were you intentional about building relationships broadly across the team, or was that something that you had to be coached and learn how to do?
I think it was more the latter. I think it took me time in, when you're a freshman, I was still following the lead of some of the veteran guys, and there were certain things that I wasn't comfortable saying and speaking up. And the older I got and the more I played, there was a couple things. I better not tell somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I had to get better about that, and also had to get more comfortable with being okay with coaching and encouraging, even if I hadn't played well, even if I hadn't, because you have this tendency where if I throw an interception, I wasn't comfortable early on going back to the huddle and saying something to an offensive lineman or a running back, because I was afraid they'd turn around and say, well, you just made the mistake. Where the older I got, we talked about, Dylan, with, you want your teammates to have effort. as long as I was showing good effort and proving that I cared, that's where your teammates would be willing to receive coaching, or maybe not even coaching, but just feedback where they understood it was important to me and I cared. And if I say something in terms of criticism, it was coming from a place of love.
Yeah. Just kind of tough love. Like,
Right.
even if they don't necessarily want to hear it, it's still good to help coach. And
For sure.
as you said, a quarterback is not just the person who throws the ball. He's the man who he's technically a head coach just on the field with the players.
Yeah.
He's someone who still has to coach everybody while juggling, still playing well, while still like trying to read the other team's defense, and it's definitely a lot.
For sure. Absolutely.
And that's why I just think it's so crazy how even if you're not necessarily the best quarterback in the world, like you're still doing an amazing job just by being in that position and trying to show effort.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's also a position where your teammates, they look to the quarterback really no matter what, whether you're on a really good team or whether you're on a bad team, that's still the guy that ultimately has to call the plays. And you're in a leadership position, whether you like it or not. And to your point, Dylan, it doesn't matter if you're the best in the world, if you're Tom Brady, or if you're playing quarterback at Rice or at your high school or middle school, the identity of the position is the same across the board.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the best piece of coaching advice you ever got from any coach at any level?
The best advice that I got all the time that I don't know if I never mastered, but our quarterback coach would tell me, don't get too high with the highs or don't get too low with the lows. I think the best quarterbacks are the ones that are unflappable, that can stay confident and remember their coaching and have that internal belief and confidence that even if I've just thrown 2 interceptions in the first half, we can still go play well in the second half. I was a very volatile, emotional player, and that it took me a long time to. And I don't think I ever fully got as good at it as I would have wanted to be. But I think if you look at the very best quarterbacks, I think of Joe Burrow, that looks completely unflappable. Doesn't matter if it's going great or if it's going horribly. He's still confident. And Josh Allen's another great example at the highest level. That it doesn't matter how poorly he's played. I'm not going to remember the statistics, but there was a game. I believe it was last year where he threw 3 or 4 interceptions and they still won. And after the game, it was, how did you kind of orchestrate this comeback? And, his comments were, and I'm not going to remember them specifically, but basically, I still believe in the guys around me. And as long as they don't give up on me, we still have a shot. And I think that's the best piece of advice. Don't be too high with the highs and too low with the lows. And honestly, that's something that I think applies to life outside of football, because there's good days and bad days and all the moments in between, and not be volatile with your emotions, especially as a quarterback.
Is there the big idea of don't get too high, don't get too low? Were you ever coached on a tactic or a technique that you tried to implement that helped you moderate the highs and the lows?
The way that they coached it was always to, immediately get focused on whatever the next play was, and to try and, in the moment, in real time within the game, not be a victim of the moment, whether it was you just threw an 80-yard touchdown. Okay, great. Let's now focus on, we're on the sideline. We're looking at whatever the next series. Exactly. Get focused on the next play. Or even more importantly, hey, you just threw a pick 6 and the other band is now playing. Okay, let's focus in, be mentally tough, and look at whatever the next series is going to be. And okay, what did we do wrong there? Boom, let's move on. And when I was young, I had a really hard time with the latter. I kind of attribute it to similar to if you hear golfers talk about moving on from a bad shot, like Cam Young, who just won a tournament last week on the PGA Tour, is I think one of the best at completely moving past a bad shot or a good shot and just staying even keel. And I think for me as a quarterback, it was important, and my coaches caught on to, if we can just get him thinking about the next play, he'll move on from whatever had happened previously, if it was a bad series or a bad play.
Yeah, exactly. And that contributes to every level, whether it's a bunch of 4-year-old kids who
For
are
sure.
just fumbling the ball around.
Yeah.
It's no matter if it's a bunch of 80-year-olds playing, like definitely just moving on, not just in football, but just the next thing in life generally.
For
Like,
sure.
if you,
It's
let's just say, like, job-wise, let's say you were about to get bought by a company, but they moved on to another company. You just have to move on and keep trying and pushing to get to your goal.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's a great example, because, we're talking about a lot of football, but and Dylan, I know your dad can tell you the same thing. I mean, you have moments forever that it's all about how you respond, because you're going to get breaks, and then there's going to be other times where it doesn't go your way, and very much how you respond and what kind of agency do you have in yourself to push on and still have confidence.
Yeah, definitely. Because all of the stuff that, just in my opinion, is in football, in some way contributes to life and how
Absolutely.
successful you are.
I agree.
Yeah. So in 2023, you joined CBS Sports as a college football analyst, and now you're co-hosting Inside the 12 on TNT. How did broadcasting find you?
I was doing I had a friend, or still a friend of mine, named Indy Kalu, who played a long time in the NFL. He was a defensive lineman for the Texans and Eagles and a couple other teams. And he had a radio show in Houston where he would have me on as a guest. And I would come on and talk college football for 10 or 15 minutes. And there was a producer of that show that was also a producer of some college football games. And they did not have an analyst for a game. The analyst they normally used was having to do something with the Astros for postseason. And so they said, hey, look, we've got an opportunity. Do you want to do this game? And I had never done it before. I followed the game. I knew what I was talking about, but I had never called a football game. And so I did one game and I liked it. I was afraid I stunk at it after the first game, but the producer said, we thought you did a good job. And I got another opportunity and slowly kind of put together a few games. And, Dylan, it's a lot like, honestly, one day if you start getting recruited for a sport, you create your highlight tape and you send it to colleges to try and get them to take a look at you. It was very similar with broadcasting. You create basically a highlight tape of your work, but instead of you playing, it's just you talking. And I would send it around, and I sent it to ESPN and Fox and CBS. And for a while, you don't really get any responses because you're trying to get, to where you're working for one of the networks. There's all sorts of other ways you can call games, whether that's with a school or with a conference. And long story short, I got on ESPN's radar. I was doing some work for them with the American Athletic Conference. And then I got on CBS's radar. And the way that it happened, it's a little bit of a crazy story. 2022 was my first game with them. I flew to Houston this was with ESPN, to do a game. It was Rice in Houston. And when I landed, I got a call from Ben Stauber with CBS, and he said, Taylor, our analyst is in El Paso for a Friday night game, and he's sick. He can't do the game tonight. Any way you could get to El Paso today? I was like, well, I just landed in Houston. It's like 10 a.m. in Houston. And I look, and there's an 11:30 flight to El Paso. And I was like, I can get there. So I drive back to the airport. I fly to El Paso. It was Boise State and UTEP. And I did it on the same day. I didn't have any time to prep. I just looked at the notes on the plane. And I also did not tell ESPN I was doing it. so I still, the next morning after I did the game with CBS, I flew back Saturday morning to Houston and did Houston and Rice Saturday night, and got very lucky because if that flight had been canceled or anything had gone wrong, I don't think I would have ever called a game again for ESPN. But that was my foot in the door with CBS, and they've been very kind to me ever since. And now I'm on the team.
That's awesome. And was there any game that for you has really stood out that has been the most exciting for you?
Yeah, I got a chance to do SMU at Oklahoma a couple years ago. So I got to go to Norman, and it was a night game, and that was the biggest college football atmosphere that I've ever, doing a game at Oklahoma is about as big as it gets. And it was a sellout crowd. Dylan Gabriel's still the quarterback at OU, and that was definitely look around and look at the crowd and think, man, this is a lot different than some of the games that I've done in the past. And I would say that one probably stands out the most as a really memorable crowd experience.
Yeah. And do you remember any certain play or massive momentum swing in the game?
I remember not necessarily during the game, but I remember in the second half, SMU, it was a very close game, and SMU was playing really well. Their defense was playing really well. And I was complimenting SMU's defense. They're keeping it close. They've got Dylan Gabriel a little bit flustered. And, Dylan, I don't know if you're probably not old enough to have any sort of social media, but I have some social media accounts that I'm not, I'm not real famous. I'm not one of these guys that's got millions of followers. And a lot of the times my games are smaller audiences. Well, this game, I'm, commenting on how well SMU's defense is playing. And I get back to my phone after the game, and Oklahoma fans have taken over my Twitter to let me know what a terrible announcer I am. So that was definitely also a unique moment where I was like, oh my gosh, there are a lot of people watching this game.
Did Oklahoma win?
They did. They won. It was close. I think they only won by 10. They pulled it out late, but
how
hard
is it? How hard is it to find, as I'm sure you're a college football fan of just the sport, and how hard was it for you just to find the balance of calling a balanced game and calling a spade for both teams and not getting caught up in, kind of the emotional swings of a game?
Yeah, I would honestly say of all of the things that are challenges, that one has not been so much so that my wife actually gets on to me about this if we're just watching Texas as fans, because that's where my wife went to school. Even if I'm watching Rice, I feel like I've always been able to just watch the sport and think about it critically, because I love the X's and O's. I love the chess pieces. I love, I don't like to game plan myself, but I love learning about coaches' game plans throughout the week and then talking to them about it on Friday. And so I don't think I've ever had a moment where I'm pulling for something in a game. I would say the only thing that broadcasters all pull for in general is they just want the game to be close. I think that's right. You just want it to be the toughest ones are when it's 40-0 at the end of the first half, and you're like, okay, this is why they're paying us. We need to have some enthusiasm in the second half. I think other than it being close, I don't think there's ever been a time where one team scores and I'm, I'll wish that, that guy hadn't made that play or this team was losing this game. That's even if and I've done some Rice games in the past. I think I've tried to, especially in those instances, be, even more complimentary sometimes of the other team, whoever that is, because I don't want to be accused of he's being a homer for his team or a certain team.
But I was just saying, if it's like 50-0, first of all, that's also a hard scenario because they could win this game still. They got this, obviously.
Yeah.
Not. But also, I've seen stuff on TV where they get advertised where it's like Ohio State versus Rutgers. I'm like, this one's going to be a close one, folks. The game was 77-0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a difficult thing because you have to hype up everything, even if it's not that hype.
That's right. That's right.
That's what they're paying you for.
That's what I was just about to say it, Dylan. That's what they're paying us for, is even if you do get, you get Ohio State versus a double directional school, you're still paid to be there, and you gotta make it be exciting.
Exactly. So, best announcer you worked with, and what have you learned from them?
Oh, that's a good question. I have worked with some awesome announcers. The guy that I have probably the most fun with on the road is Richard Cross. He lives in Oxford, Mississippi. He does a lot of Ole Miss. He was Ole Miss's sideline announcer on radio for a long time, and he hosts a radio show in Oxford. But he does a lot of baseball, college football. We have a great time on the road together, and I enjoy anytime I get paired up with him. I really enjoy just the time around him. Ted Emmerich, I would say, is probably the most polished. He lives in Dallas. Ted is consummate professional, is never going to get flustered. Ted does a phenomenal job, and he does a lot of different sports. Works with Westwood One for the Masters coverage. He does stuff. He's a play-by-play for the Mavericks for certain games, and then also obviously with college football and basketball with ESPN, and he does an incredible job. Rich Waltz has been doing it for a long, long time. He was the play-by-play for the Miami Marlins for a long time, and now he does primarily work with CBS Sports for college football and college basketball. And he's another guy that Rich is a little older than me, but he, I think, does such a great job. The games that I've worked with him, making me feel comfortable, because he is sort of a celebrity in the space, and he could very easily, intimidate me if he wanted to, especially the first time I worked with him. But he made me feel, like I belong there, and you're going to do a great job, and kind of instilling that confidence in me. And so those three guys. There's more that I've worked with. There's not a single person I've worked with that I haven't enjoyed working with. But everybody, I've been very fortunate. I've had really, really good partners.
Yeah, definitely. And
I got a quick question about that. What is a nuance of the job that makes a broadcasting team, a broadcaster special, that the casual fan, or even just as a fan who's not doing the job, kind of day to day, like what is kind of a nuance or insight from that role that makes somebody, special at the job?
I think a big part of it is you can tell with some of these teams if they legitimately get along with one another. And that's what I mean, where I say the people that I've worked with, I like these people. I mean, I'm sharing Christmas cards with a lot of these people, and we're texting throughout the year. And that shows in a game, because it's not just the X's and O's. The producers and the networks, they want to see some banter between you. They want to see you joke around a little bit. This is, we're talking about sports. Let's have fun while we're doing this. Yeah. I think another thing that off camera at least helps me a lot is my favorite play-by-plays will ask questions during the break. What do you like here? What do you want to hit? What have we not talked about that you want to discuss? And they will ask questions live, where I think a lot of times the easiest way to make the analyst sound like the expert, because that's what the analyst is supposed to be. That's your on-site expert that usually played or coached the sport, is when the play-by-play asks them a question in real time. A play happens, and maybe there's a break in the action, and they say, Taylor, why do you think they did that? I mean, that seemed like an interesting spot to do that. Why do you think they did that? Because now it gives me the opportunity to give my answer, and I come across to the viewer like the expert, because they're saying, if anybody is working this game that should know the answer, it should be that guy. And I think those are a couple of things that having a good partner, if you genuinely like one another, and then if they do a good job of kind of teeing you up to sound like you know what you're talking about, I think that helps.
Yeah, definitely. And as we've been talking about basically this whole podcast, you definitely need a supporting cast and team to help you figure it out. But I think that is kind of smart how they sort of ask you the question and do, like, let me rephrase that.
Well, they kind of,
I think I think it's cool, as you're saying, how it kind of makes you look like the expert.
Right.
Well, you are, but
But they're helping me.
like a pretty good, yeah, exactly.
It's like a good alley-oop.
Exactly.
That's right.
Good teamwork.
For you to throw it down.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
Couldn't find, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
So being in broadcasting, what is your best advice for me in developing my skills on the microphone?
I think what you guys are doing right now, like I told you at the beginning, I think this is awesome. I think it's different and it's unique. And I think sports media, there's so many different things you could talk about. And I think a lot of times you hear people say, oh, it's such a crowded space. There's so many podcasts, there's so many shows. But anything you can do to be a little bit different and also be you, I think is the advice that I was given from a couple of friends of mine that are analysts is don't try to be Kirk Herbstreit. Don't try to be, Joel Klatt or, whatever announcer out there that you're familiar with. Just be you. And maybe there's things that you take. And if there's certain pieces of other people's game, so to speak, that you like, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes time to Dylan, for you and your show with your dad, be you and what you like to do. And I think that will be more important than, the people that I think try to copy other ideas or try to, look at another show or for me, another game and try to be that person. I think that's where you don't have as much success because it's also not as fun, right? It's more fun to just be yourself and it's more fun that way to approach the work as well. Like when you're getting ready for this stuff, it's the same way I'm getting ready for a game. It's a lot easier for me to just know when the microphone turns on and the camera turns on, I get to just talk about what I've studied all week. I don't have to think about, well, how would this person say that? Because I would just want to be myself. And like I said, I think you guys, this is a really cool, unique show and kind of the format that you guys have is very different.
Yeah, because we probably have, not on purpose, but we probably have taken some podcasters' questions, maybe have the same questions, but I do think it's very important not to, as you said, because if just say I was trying to be Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He's an announcer, right? It's more fun to be, as you're saying, be yourself because they're like, oh, well, I think instead of going,
well, the last time
what would Tom Brady think?
Yeah, and the last time I checked, you have less Super Bowl rings than he does.
So do I.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there one day.
I love it.
Yeah, great.
So, what has sports taught you about grit and determination?
I would say, so when I was getting recruited, we took my DVD copy of all of my highlights and had a letter, and we sent it out to almost every Division I school in the country. There were only a few that we left off, and it was like Texas and Notre Dame because they already had quarterbacks, and I knew I probably wasn't going to go there. But just creating opportunities and staying in front of people and not being passive because, again, I think sports, whether I was playing or now in sports media, unless you are, even for Tom Brady, he had to have this incredible career for the phone to ring now. Nothing happens by accident. And you just got to try to create some luck for yourself.
Yeah, he was a 6th round pick, a backup Q from Michigan. All he needed was the opportunity to play. Because he wasn't super athletic or super agile or could throw the ball 800 yards.
Right.
He knew how to play the game. And
that's right.
He mastered his craft and he studied a lot. He watched a lot of film and he just learned how to really master the game.
Well, I think that's exactly what Taylor's talking about, creating his own luck and being around the hoop. I mean, every time you listen to Tom Brady talk, the level of determination and focus that he had despite all of those things that weren't going for him, that he persevered and battled through to create his own luck. I think is awesome. And just like, Taylor's talking about creating his own luck. He wasn't waiting for somebody to come knock on his door. He was creating the videos, writing the letters, doing the outreach, being determined. And I think, that level of determination is, to Taylor's point, a little bit about what we're creating. It's like, let's knock on doors. Let's have conversations. Let's learn all we can about, not only about sports, but about podcasting, broadcasting, and continue to get better at it. So it's being fun, being active in the process. And, it's kind of that forget about the last play and keep taking the next step mentality.
100%.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, me and my dad were reading this book called Psychology of Money. Not really the same thing, but the same idea. It's also, a lot of it is where you get yourself, but a lot of life is kind of luck and where you grow up in the environment that you start learning and what resources you have, and just trying to generate more luck and to get yourself into a better spot for the luck to turn out into your favor.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And not everybody starts out at the same spot. But I think over my life, I'm 35 years old, so I certainly don't have it all figured out. But over my life, the people that I've seen around me that are the most successful are the ones that never stop asking questions and truly, everybody says work hard, but truly they work hard. Wake up and think about how do I, waking up to figure it out today, whatever the thing is, whatever they specialize in or whatever they care about, having that sense of urgency. And again, we keep saying it, but trying to create your own luck, because you need the breaks somewhere along the way, because you're also going to get times where you don't get the breaks and somebody else gets the opportunity, or they get named the starter, or they get the offer. But that doesn't mean that there won't be other opportunities in the future.
Definitely. And it's also just progress, not perfect. Like you don't want to wake up and go, okay, today I'm gonna throw a perfect game. I'm gonna do everything right. I'd rather wake up and go, all right, today maybe let's try to get a 10-yard pass complete. Let's try not to throw an interception.
That's right.
Just try not to fumble the ball.
Yep.
Just little goals working up to your ultimate goal.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what's your best advice for a successful life?
Well, I think it's what we've kind of been talking about lately, but I think in terms of success, professionally or when I was playing, I think a huge thing that maybe we haven't talked about is try to find a mentor, try to find somebody that's done what you want to do. My dad always instilled that in me. And if you look around and the people that are above you don't look like they're very happy, maybe that's not where you need to be. And I think I've tried to find somebody that was ahead of me. And that doesn't necessarily mean age. They can be your age, but if they've accomplished what you want to accomplish, or if they've done something that you look at and say, how do I get there? Ask those questions, because even if somebody has, we talk about not everybody's given the same resources or start out in the same spot. They still had to ask questions and figure it out along the way. And if you could find a good mentor, whatever it is, whether it's, work or Dylan for you in school or a sport, try to find somebody that not just has had that success, but it's also willing to give you advice and kind of shepherd you as best they can along the way. I think that I've had some great mentors in my life and professionally. Now, I'm married with kids. That stuff. It can go in any, a lot of different directions.
Yeah, definitely. And
I think that's
again, what our whole idea of this podcast has been mainly having a supporting, or kind of my idea has been having a supporting group and having just somebody there by your side to get you through tough times, or Even just get you a snack when you're hungry.
That's right. We always need a snack.
That's right. Well, I think, it goes back to a conversation that I think we had with Brendan Hines-Ike on the FC Austin team. And he talked about how important his community was, and this is just another version of, hey, you've got one person and maybe it's more than one, but it's a mentor. So he talked about how important that immediate supporting cast was around him to encourage him to pursue his dreams. And I think what I hear Taylor saying is, people that can help propel your dreams and help you avoid either mistakes or give you guidance to, to get there faster. So, man, we've sure learned this podcast has been a great tool for the both of us as we get a lot of different perspectives and mentoring and think about some of the tools like that. Who are we supporting ourselves with, or who are we surrounding ourselves with? And then, who are we willing to take advice from? And people that have performed at high levels, whether that's been in college or professional, or taken that experience in college and professional and turn that into high performance in the business world. I did, I thought it was interesting, or just kind of rang a bell when you were talking about, putting a tape together and writing a letter in the recruiting. I was wondering, we've been playing the networking game, trying to get a guest on, as you kind of think about the broadcast world, we'd obviously love to talk with,
Bro, we're like a minute away from being done.
So close. There he is.
We're back again.
Man, I'm sorry, guys. My phone's going nuts.
No worries. I was
with
just
the
say,
letters.
Do you have? Oh, I was just thinking about how you went about your recruiting.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had any advice for us, trying to book guests on the podcast. We've been playing the networking game, which we're happy to continue to do as fun, but maybe just as an outside observer, like any advice that you might have for us in terms of, booking guests and creating that kind of pipeline.
I think, just continuing to ask for those kind of warm intros, because that's the easiest way to continue to expand your network and get people to, good guests to jump on. A lot more entertaining than me.
No, man, you've been fantastic.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure to have you. And thank you so much for being so gracious with your time.
No, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we'll connect on the flip side about maybe getting connected to some more of the folks on,
For sure.
on your network. Hope you have a great Friday afternoon and a good weekend. And we'll keep you updated as we get this
Awesome.
up and posted and rolling along.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Taylor.
Bye.
Have a great
Bye.
afternoon.
See ya.
He's gone. He couldn't go all the way.
But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
We talking about practice.
You play to win the game.
Playoffs?
It's like taking poison, like rat poison.
It's the